Hi everybody, forgot to pay the power bill. Kevin here. Today we're going to talk about a very controversial topic. What happened to Freedom Gundam? Right? Upon release, Freedom Gundam was one of the best cards that everybody, I think, initially said this is going to set the format on fire. Because if you don't watch Gundam Seed, this is like the star card for Gundam Seed. It is, I believe, Japan's favorite mobile suit. How do I know that? Because I love Freedom Gundam 2. Here's the MGSD. That's my desk buddy, my desk Gunpla buddy, because it's very adorable. It's very cool. I have the Master Grade displayed somewhere up there, but it is Japan's favorite mobile suit, and in my opinion, I absolutely think this is the only good mobile suit design in Gundam Seed. That's right, I said it. I'm not a big fan of Gundam Seed, but I absolutely love Freedom Gundam because America, and also just the Astray Red frame, right? But that will probably be a card in the foreseeable future. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But today we're going to talk about the Freedom Gundam because what happened? Look at this now. It's $12 card. I know usually market watch is not financial advice and not a financial channel, but obviously when the meta shifts, card prices shift as well. You can see here in the little chart because, you know, it doesn't lie. Men lie, women lie, babies lie, but the math don't lie. Look at this. It used to be $35 more or less on release day. Everybody's like, this card is so broken. If you don't know what the card does, because you've been living under a rock or think Gundam is cringe, basically it's a blocker. And also during pair, remember pair, not link, that's different. Pilot things can be paired, but not everything can be linked, so that's the difference. When you pair a pilot with this unit or one of your white units, choose one enemy unit against it gets -2 AP during this turn. So if you apply it with Kira, of course, Kira Yamato, that means that you're gonna neg for your enemy unit. So because it's a big booty with 6, you're like probably not gonna take any damage whatsoever. And then you combine that with the Archangel, which is the base that comes with the set, then you're gonna be absolutely in great shape because you get to attack, play it aggressively, and then also you get the unrested. And then now it can't be attacked, and also it can block something. And of course, 4 damage plus Kira is like 2. So you're going to be able to do 6 damage to basically anything, and that, for the most part, takes out anything around this level. The only thing I can think of that maybe it doesn't really take out in one shot or trade well is with, you know, Wing Gundam, but that's another story that we'll talk about some other time. But what happened to Freedom Gundam exactly? If you've been following me on YouTube and watching my videos, which by the way, thank you very much for all you viewers. Please sub, like, all that fun stuff. If you want to see more Gundam related content, especially controversial opinions, right? Like this. You can see again, it was $35, and then slowly but surely, a week later, boom, it went down to like $24, and boom, another week, it would come crashing down, crashing out like crazy. Even though the effect obviously is very, very good. You put this with Kira, every time I summoned it, in my experience, is basically like a game ender. So now you can see an initial for the meta, right? Remember the first name again? Shout out to Eggman. Also, it feels bad, but honestly, maybe my my self-imposed selective rating. But I always thought it was like, you know, Eggman from Sonic. What is it? EG. Eggman. Shout out to him, of course, for all the content he provides to this community. Very, very grateful for him. So this is the first event. July 27th, right? 64 players. Again, remember, this is the time people are trying to figure out what is the meta. The first one to win, of course, is Wing Zero, which in my opinion is still the best deck of the format. We got early unicorn blockers, which we'll look really quickly here, where even then it's not really unicorn blockers. I think it's more, I think, suited towards the Freedom, because usually now with Freedom blockers, I think people will probably max out on Unicorn Gundam. At least that's what I do. Max out Unicorn Gundam. Try to max out on Destroyer mode, but maybe 3 is probably fine, more than enough. And then don't even bother playing Freedom Gundam, because at that point, level 7, your worst matchup again is Wing Zero. So if they drop on you, all your units are like super bad. And then, yeah, you could at that point hopefully summon Freedom Gundam, but by then you're probably playing it a little bit aggressively. And then even again, Wing Zero, remember, you can't block it because that's high maneuver inherently built in it. So you're only able to take it out on their turn, which makes it like less intrinsically valuable against your worst matchup. So that's the first unicorn, I think, initial unicorn list. But we'll look at Freedom Blockers by Henry Lin. Shout out to them if they're still playing. This is the first time you see Freedom Gundam overall in like some kind of meta topping list. And man, how times have changed, right? How times have changed. So nostalgic looking at this. This is like a month ago, by the way. So you see that they maxed out on Freedom Gundam, because of course, why would you not max out on Freedom Gundam? This is like a turn game ender. Every time you summon it, it's probably gonna take out anything and everything. And also remember that with Kira, it's able to neg for any unit. And so if you're playing against stuff like aggro blockers decks and stuff like that, this deck is going to dominate against that. Because remember, initially people were again still trying to figure things out. Like maybe Xeon is like a great deck. Cyber New Type, I believe, was still trying to figure out his stride, right? Being able to ping units, especially against freedom blockers, where it's able to like add up its value. But then slowly but surely, look, it's so classic. Look at 2 Gundam. Maybe they only had access to 1 starter deck, hence why they're only able to get like only 2 Grandpa Gundam. But Grandpa Gundam right now, I believe, is the most valuable card out of all the starter decks. By itself, it's like 15 bucks, I think. But you can see here, it's a very like, you know, simple control oriented deck, like nothing too aggressive at all. You just kind of like bide your time, and then you play Freedom Gundam, and hopefully you'll be able to bop your opponent, right? And Gundam, Normie Gundam, Grandpa Gundam is like a great mid-range thing to add AP to your units. So that's the first initial Freedom Blockers list, right? You're playing 2 of these in their list. Some people, again, play like in the very beginning, play like 4, right? Henry Lin, again, playing 4. This is the Unicorn version-ish, where they're playing 2. I think everybody more or less decided to play like 2 to 4. That's like the ratio, more or less, right? But then slowly but surely, let's look. This is August 2nd, right? August 2nd, so maybe like next week. Where'd Freedom Gundam go? Uh-oh. This is Japan, by the way. Now, to be fair, Japan, I believe at the time, was playing a lot more aggressive aggro strategies. You can see all the number of tops here for their Swiss cut, whatever, their Bandai official release event. Remember, it's only like 7 rounds, best of 1. Some data can be skewed here and there. Let's look at Xeon aggro real quick. Shout out to Abe or Abe. Look at this very simple deck list, right? Nothing level 4. Shout out again to Char's Gelgoog, best card in the game for Xeon, right? Because it's able to revive your Char, and at the moment nothing can really do that except Banerjee with Unicorn, right? So you get so much value out of Char and Char's Gelgoog, so that's great. High maneuver shenanigans, very simple deck, right? We don't really see this topping anymore because now people can ping it, and then having like 1, 2 kind of value cards are really difficult to stop against blocker decks, right? So that's Japan's mentality and meta at the moment for August 2nd, right? You see any Freedom? No Freedom, right? Did anybody even play Freedom? No, I don't think anybody actually played Freedom. Well, maybe blue-white unicorn blockers. They probably did play at least a Freedom, right? There, see, 2 Freedom. Everybody more or less plays 2 or 4 Freedom. That's like the meta. And then slowly, August 6th. Remember, now we're in America. Or NA. I'll say NA. You're going to see again. Where'd Freedom Blockers go? Where'd it go? It's gone. It's missing. Put out a APB for it. Not even playing Freedom. Because everybody, I think, at this point realized when you're playing against aggro decks, it's going to take you so long to get to level 7. Especially if you're unable to ramp like Wing Gundam and like Green White is able to do with like bird mode and stuff like that. So what do you got to do? What's the solution to that? You play relatively low value units, and then you can try to cheat out your big boy destroy mode unicorn at level 5. So that means you're like 2, maybe 3 turns ahead of your opponent, and you're able to try to swing for a game playing extremely aggressive, right? Again, people don't even bother playing Freedom Gundam anymore at this point. Of course, I'm not saying like you don't have to, you can't, you shouldn't, but it's very disadvantageous at the moment because the meta has gotten so fast. Look, like I said, men lie, women lie, babies lie. Initially, you gotta play 4 of them things, $35 card each. Now, nah, $10 card, right? 12 bucks. I think lowest was $8.50. People actually buying this. Yeah, $10, $12. People are starting to buy it. Starting to go up again. But then hopefully the meta will shift, and that's where you're gonna see Freedom Gundam go back up to relevance, right? And this is more recent deck lists from August 24th, right? Last week at the time of this recording. By Attack Game, shout out to them. Wing Zero, of course, is topping. Xeon Aggro managed to get in. And now we're looking at Unicorn, right? Unicorn, what they got? Do they even have unicorn? That's Freedom Blockers Academy. There we go. Playing Academy with Soletta. That's another viable option. This is somewhat interesting to me because I don't think I've ever seen anybody play aerial rebuild unironically. But like I said in my previous video, which by the way, thank you for watching everybody. There's a lot of discussion. I appreciate that. There is potential for aerial rebuild and foreseeable future to be like extremely broken. Why? Because they're able to reload and reuse your command cards and recycle in the graveyard. And just from experience in TCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, anytime something happens in the graveyard, like being able to interact with it, there's always room for things to be broken, right? Especially with Soletta being paired with it, where you're able to choose one of your resources instead of active. Most command cards, for the most part, are a level 1 cost or whatever, like a 1 cost, aside from like, you know, show of resolve and stuff like that. But you're able to add back your command card and then have it in your hand like a hand trap or something like that. And I think that's obviously very good, because then it scares your opponent from like, oh, they have that broken card, like I don't know if I should attack. If I do something stupid, like they're gonna just like -3 AP, like the unforeseen incident, which is like amazing, -3 AP. And then if they attack you, you attack them, they take the damage, or they take the damage, you don't take any damage at all. But for this deck list, it's very interesting that they're playing Witch and the Bride. I don't ever see anybody play this because it's level 5, 2 cost. I think there are many command cards you'd rather play. I can see the reasoning, because 5 or less HP is almost every unit at that point. Like for example, your Ale Strikes will probably be like a 5 health if you have it with Kita. But then if you bounce back the Ale Strike, they're just gonna able to summon it next turn and then bounce one of your units anyways, right? Personally, I don't see the reason why you would want to ever bounce back like pilot cards, especially if it's something good like Akira. But I mean, you can, right? That's not bad. Like an action phase, you can do that and then bounce it back, so then they have to do it at the following turn. That's always an option. Personally, I never really like bouncing cards for the most part, especially if they're paired with units. But I probably think that's why they're playing this, because you would, in my opinion, if I was playing this, I would only reasonably activate it for like units that are not paired or linked, right? I don't understand why you would ever do that for something that's paired, because then it just get the effect again and you just get screwed, right? But anyways, shout out to them. Rickmon, sorry, selective reading. Shout out to them for getting a top on Freedom Blockers and Academy. And again, we'll look at Unicorn Blockers, free win, ironic name here. Playing 2 Freedom, sure. Playing Aerial. Wow, that's a lot of levels, gang. 6, 7, 7, what is that, 5, 8 quick maps. 8 units, don't even bother with early game. And then play a bunch of command cards. Ooh, Kusanagi. You don't see that too often, huh? You have to choose one enemy and return it to the hand. I have no idea how they managed to top this, but impressive to them. Very, very interesting deck list, of course. Playing how many pilots? Like 12 pilots, 4 bases, 10 command cards, 24 units. I guess you have your blockers. Not even full up on Lefrith, which I think is probably the best blocker in terms of value. But they managed to do it. I don't know how they did it, but shout out to them. But you can see over time how Freedom Gundam just fell out of favor, gang. Right? Here's another one on the same day. We'll look at the other ones. Shout out to Medwalk. How many freedoms they playing? 2 freedoms. Right? Otherwise, a fairly standard, I think, Unicorn Freedom Blocker deck list. But if you noticed over time, is that now people are like doubling down on adding some kind of unicorn package to help aggressively like end games. Because if you just play 4 freedom, like initial deck lists, like here, and not putting up on unicorns, I don't think it's a viable strategy that's good against like something Wing Zero, again, which is the worst matchup possible, and potentially like aggro decks that are able to overwhelm you. Especially around my locals where I'm playing against like, not jank per se, but people are trying to experiment with Zaft, right? Zaft I think is a sleeper hit as well, because being able to support units means that one unit can potentially be very big, and also it gets around the summoning sickness mechanic where, remember, if it's not linked on the first turn, you have to wait till the next turn to attack with it. It doesn't really matter if you don't attack, because it's able to like to rest it for support with like Buster Gundam or something. So Zath, I think, is also a sleeper deck. Academy is a sleeper deck, but what happened to Freedom Gundam, gang, is just the meta shifted itself. Again, this is the most recent deck list in Occitania. I assume that's somewhere in SEA. But you can see all these Wing Zero tops, man. Wing Zero is the bee's knees right now, especially around my locals too. When they have the new type challenge, I'm expecting Wing Zero completely. And I don't know, you gotta try to do well with your unicorn blockers, which is personally my favorite and viable strategy that I like playing. But yeah, I guess if you want to play one of those guys or gals, most likely guys, who want to like counter the meta, you gotta play something a little bit aggressive so you can counter the Wing Zero, because that's the best game. That's the best deck in the game right now. It's crazy how much it can do, because you're able to just ramp so easily, and like other decks are just kind of being slow. You can have big boy units with first strike. Like, it's just so hard. Shout out to Comey here, first place. Look, you're able to play blockers, and you're able to just get like the drop on things, especially with Breach too. Yeah, it's crazy to them because they're not even playing like bird mode, right? So if you're playing Wing Zero, expect a lot of mirror matches. I would presume this is built to play around the mirror match as well, because being able to bounce units is very imperative, important. And yeah, let me know. Freedom Gundam is still good in your area. My area, Freedom Gundam, just like disappeared. I think I've seen maybe people summon Freedom Gundam like once. Even me, I only play like one Freedom Gundam at this point, and I try to max out on the unicorn package. But anyways, controversial opinion aside, let me know down below if Freedom Gundam is gonna come back in full force. It's kind of coming back in full force, right? It kind of recovered. You can see this. $12 card used to be $11, but like I said, men lie, women lie, babies lie. Math don't lie, the charts don't lie. Look at that, just on them. Wow, boom. But anyways, see you around. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.